on the Hayamid base, right in the middle by the two dots. We said in the Mishnah, Gimel Yom also losses lost Simayin. We said in the Mishnah there are all kinds of transactions with non-Jews. It's not really non-Jews because that's an inaccurate term. It's specifically idol worshippers. So 3 days before their holidays, we're prohibited from engaging in all kinds of commerce. We can't buy and sell from them. We can't borrow and lend. Whether it's bull halacha is not enforced at all. We don't have any. You can't do a transaction with a non-Jew. I think that the Rishonim Paskin specifically that the Christians are not included as Avoda Zara. The whole problem we're going to get. The Gemara is going to say exactly what the problem is, but it involves them being Avoda Zara when the holiday comes because of this transaction. I don't think the either Christians or Muslims. I don't think there's a lot of idol worshippers around.
No.
Yeah. So I don't. It would be a very. It would be something you really have to keep an eye on. There's a lot like you couldn't go into a bank that was owned by non-Jew. You couldn't go into a store and buy something. Now I just wonder, like we used to be that you walk into a store in the United States in New York City. If it wasn't a Jewish, it was a Christian. Now it's unlikely to be a Christian. It's more likely to be from some Middle Eastern or South Asia. Who knows what they worship? Right, Hindus and Buddhists and all kinds of different things. But I never heard of anyone practicing.
Not yet.
Right.
The bugs and the shit.
So maybe I'll go. I believe me, I could go to Rabbi Yaman Cohen and ask him, and I'm sure it'll be
fuming.
Oh yeah, he'll cause. So nobody can go into any, only Jewish stores. To get a hechsher on your store. Okay. In any case, the Gemara says, but the Mishnah said it has to be 3 days before you have to stop using the stores. You have to stop doing transactions because that's when people start thinking about their Yom Tov, and then when their Yom Tov comes, or their holiday comes, they're going to be makriv of a carbon, or they're going to make a tefillah. Pashas to bring a carbon and have in mind it's going to be because of this transaction. So really have to be 3 full days beforehand. I mean, there's the amount of din that's relevant to us. We only say that 1 day before a person is still thinking about or preparing for the Yom Tov. Because we say someone who sells a behema, one Jew to another Jew, he has to provide a disclaimer that ima macharti lishchait, bita macharti lishchait. There are 4 days that it's very common for Yidden to buy and sell behemoths. And if you had sold, there's a din, one cannot shecht a behemoth together with its mother, or a mother together with its daughter on the same day. It's halacha, right? It's also to do so. So if you sold a behemoth on a day that everyone's buying and selling behemoths for shechita, and the previous day you had sold the mother, you have to tell this person, don't go ahead and shecht it today because I sold it yesterday. Now, normally if you sell a behemoth, you don't have any reason to believe they're going to shecht it the next day. But these are days that specifically a lot of people shecht their behemoths. It's days that commonly, as soon as you get it, you shecht it. So if you sold it that day and you sold both of them, the mother and daughter that day, chances are they're both going to be shechted. Anyway, Erev Yom Tov Achron Shel Chag, on the Shmini Atzeres, which is the day before the last day of Sukkot. On Sukkot, people don't buy so many karbanis. They don't buy animals for the chagiga and the ri'iyah before the beginning of Yom Tov because they're very busy with the lulav and esek. So they don't have time for the chagiga and the eilis ri'iyah. So they could wait. They wait till on Chalamoy to do it. So they do it on Erev Yom Tov. Erev Yom Tov Rishon Shal Pesach, Erev Atzeres. But on Erev Pesach and on Erev Shavuos, those are the days that people will buy and then bring their chagiga right away. Erev Rosh Hashanah, Erev Rosh Hashanah, there's no there's no carbon chagiga. That's only on the Shalosh Regalim, but people eat a lot of meat on Rosh Hashanah, so they're going to likely to shecht on that day. According to Beis Haglil, in the Galil, they used to make big fleishik meals on Erev Yom Tov, Erev Yom Kippur, which is Yom Tov. So all these days, like we said, are days that it's very common for people to buy behemoths to shecht. So therefore, the Chavum Misakin, if you sell a mother cow, let's say, and the baby cow on that day, you have to tell the second purchaser that you already sold the other animal, so he shouldn't come to be over unknowingly on the din that you're not allowed to shecht the mother and the daughter on the same day, because it's so common for people to shecht it immediately. So, but the problem is, we see we're only concerned about one day. But l'chayre, if we're saying that for 3 days before the holidays of the Goyim, they go and purchase their animals, having in mind that it should be for their Chag. So why are we saying only 1 day before Yom Tov? If you buy a behema, you have to worry that the person's shechting it. Why don't we say even if you sold the behema 3 days before, you sold a mother 3 days before Yom Tov, and then on Erev Yom Tov you sold the calf, you should also, everyone's planning to do it for Yom Tov. According to our Mishnah that we say for 3 days beforehand, the Goyim are preparing, why we're not any worse than the Goyim, we should also be preparing for 3 days before. So Gemara, Hasam del Achila Sagya B'chad Yom. He says, no, over there, when we're talking about the Jewish din, that you have to give a disclaimer that it might be a mother together with the daughter. That's ultimately the problem is that the people are bringing it. They're bringing it as a carbon, but they're going to end up eating it. So the Gabi eating, they're only doing it, that's only 1 day. But when you're doing it for a carbon, you need 3 days. That means that you need 3 days. Zakrashi, they check it. They have to check it for 3 days. So the Gemara is going to explain what the Indian of checking for 3 days for la hakrava. In fact, the Gemara, but Tanan Shalom Hilchas Pesach Kaidem Pesach Shoishim Yom Shugul Loimer Sheish Abasas. We say that we wait. We start checking. The Gemara says we start learning the halachas of Pesach 30 days before. Shimon Leo says 2 weeks. So why are we saying hakrav is only 3 days? The Gemara understands that that you check it for 3 days is to check that the animal is kosher. So Gemara Anand Shchichimum de Pasli. Afilu Bedukun Shabbayim Bein Tlasin Human. Our hakrava in a chanami is longer. We start checking 30 days before, and because we're very, very medactic in our karbanis, exactly what its status is, and we start looking at it to see does it have any of those moments. But they could even use an animal that any bedukah shabayin is not going to ruin an animal for the hakrav alavai Zara. So all they care about is that it shouldn't be missing an aver. So 3 days is enough to get the animal and check that it doesn't have a missing aver. Zak Gemara, the Amar of and the Gemara says, where do we see it? Amar Blas. How do we know that an animal that's missing an aver is also to bnei nayach? And Rashi explains what are we talking about? We're talking about what they bring for Avoda Zara. Those means the asal bnei nayach. So Rashi says the asal bnei nayach lahakar gulvaya, when a guy can also bring a carbon, and they're not allowed to bring a carbon that's missing for the Rabban Shalman a bama that's missing an aver. V'dum yidikamarjanagu avesayim l'shamayim Hey, noigin lavoidus kechavim shalahem. The rules of avoidus kechavim are based on the original rules they have handed down from the Dairis, that when they used to be, the Goyim used to be living in Eretz Yisrael under the Yidden, and they would bring korbanos to Hashem, so they had to make sure it wasn't Mechusar Eber, so they adopted those when they do their own Avodah Zara. They follow the halachas of what they were allowed to bring when they were bringing korbanos to Hashem. Right? Saying, what does it have to, what are we talking about halachas of what Goyim bring for Avodah Zara? They do whatever they do. Who knows? It's all based on the actual halachas of bringing a carbon.
No, it's in Beis Hamikdash they would actually accept a korban that's
From a non-Jew.
No, non-Jew. It states that let's say from a non-Jew that has like a scar in the eye.
Right.
They would actually.
That's what it seems. Yeah. On the Bama, Rashi says that in the Beis Hamikdash they couldn't bring it. Look at the Tais Minayin L'Mechusa Ever, like on the last wide lines. Pirish L'Hakar L'Gvoya B'Bama Shalhem. That's to bring it on a not in the Beis Hamikdash, but in a a more informal Bama. The Ilu Beis Hamikdash I feel B'Dugan Shayin Nami Aser. Then if they wrote the Beis Hamikdash, they had to follow all the actual rules.
So we're using the same Bama as us.
I don't know. I don't know.
This was before the Beis Hamikdash was built, right? Since the Beis Hamikdash was built,
There were no Bamas, right? Bamas were Aser. This was before the big building there.
But I'm sorry then.
Yeah. They kept. Listen, it sounds strange, but you find in like South America, you have some Spanish-speaking. They look like full-fledged Hispanics that you see in Home Depot that are following, like they light candles on Friday night, and they don't even know why. From 500 years ago, so people keep their messiahs without knowing why they're doing it anymore. It's true. It's not just there. It's all around the world. It's different. They are constantly finding. Yeah. Okay. We are. Yeah. The Amr of Elazar. Elazar said, "Minayim lemechusa ever the asl bnei noach." Where do we know that an animal that's the only thing that's asr for the bnei noach, right? This is what it's based on. The only thing that's asr for bnei noach to bring on a bama is a mechusa ever. It's missing a limb. The chsev mikol achai, mikol basar shnayim mikol. It says by noach that he took onto the teva. He took from any animal. He took from every chai, every living thing. Mikol basar shnayim mikol. Amar Torah hava behema shechayin rasha evain shalom. So we would say mikol achai tells you that all the Avarim have to be there. And Noach was bringing these animals to bring eventually as a carbon. So therefore he brought behemoths that had to have, and he was only a ben Noach. So and all he needed to do was that the Rasha Avarim was still there, but any other type of mum did not passel for a goyish, for a non-Jewish hakrava. And we know that Noach brought for akrava because he said he brought from the kosher animals. He brought 7 were extras because he was bringing them for karbanis. So the animals were being brought for akrava, and the Torah says mikol achai. In fact, the Gemara hami bayale lemute treifa the life. Maybe not. We need that pasuk for a different thing. It says mikol achai to tell you that the animal has to be a viable animal. It can't be a treifa, which means an animal that's has a fatal flaw, like a hole in its lungs that's going to cause it to die, which is we don't eat it, but it's also possible to be brought as a carbon, even by a bnei noach. No, treifa milacha zera nafka. The pasuk says, in addition to this mikol achai, mikol basar, it says, Gam me'oiv hashamayim shiva zachor nekeva lacha zera, to continue to propagate children. So that tells you it has to be a treifa. It can't be a treifa. Well, how do you know? No, how does that araya? Maybe that's only true if it's a rule that an animal has a, like, let's say, a hole in its lung that's going to kill it in some time is unable to procreate. But that's not necessarily the case. It could be an animal has a death sentence on itself, but it could still, um, you know, inseminate a female cow or give birth even if it's a female cow before she dies. So what is lahacha Zara telling you? That that wouldn't exclude a treifa. Amar kra itcha b'doimim lacha. The pasuk says, "Mikol achai, mikol bas, or shnayim, mikol tavi el hateva lahacha yes itcha to be mechaya together with you." Itcha over here is noyach, saying just like you, b'doimim lacha. It has to be similar to you. That just like you noyach are not a treifa, so too the animal has to be a non-treifa. How do you know Noach wasn't a treifa? Noach, how long after the Mabel he died? I don't know. I guess this is Gemara assuming that whenever he died, it would have been within the bounds of when a treifa is. So the Gemara can't be that Noach was a treifa. It says Tamim. We all know, right? The first pasuk in Noach. Eila told us Noach ish tzaddik Tamim haye b'daraisa. It says he's a Tamim. Tamim is not a treifa. In fact, it was Dilma Tamim b'drachavaya. No, what do we always understood what Tamim means? Tamim means that he was a good man. He was a tumistic person. Doesn't mean. No, yeah, for sure. Right? That's what the Tamim is. Tamim is, and that's certainly the context of the pasuk. So tomorrow, no. If that was the case, tzaddik said it's a drasha because it says Tamim hayet tzaddik. Noach ish tzaddik Tamim hayet b'daraisa. So once you say there's a tzaddik, but you have to also say it's a Tamim. It's coming for drasha to tell you that he wasn't a treifa, and therefore we could learn out that the animals were also not treifas. And then we'll have the extra pasuk of what it said, Mikol achai, to tell you that it can't be a eva menacha, it can't be missing an eva. So tomorrow, Dilma Tamim midrachav, tzaddik b'maisav. Well, it says no. Maybe it's two separate things. When we say Tamim, that's a reference to his midas, like Rashi says. The first Rashi on the Amid, Tamim midrachav, ana v'shafal ruach. Tmimus is what we understand Tmimus to be, someone who's humble. He's straight and humble. And tzaddik is a different thing. The tzaddik b'maisa, Rashi says beloy chamas. He's not. He's honest. You could be very humble and then also be a thief. This is his maisim were I guess the chamas is because he's a ben noyach. So there's no tzaddik b'maisav, that he wears his tefillin. He davens for a long time, but the bnei noyach are mitzvah on gzela. So he found. So it's two separate things. So the tamim is not extra. So the noyach gufe treifa. The Gemara says this whole branch of thought doesn't make sense. We're saying maybe noyach is a treifa, and when it says it's like noyach, I mean just like noyach, it's a treifa. Treifa hava only rachmana kavasach ayel shlamim loit ayel. It would come out. The Torah is saying it has to be like noyach. Noyach was a treifa. They could also bring a treifa, but if it's not a treifa, they can't bring it. They can't. The guy can't bring a animal that's a tam. Doesn't make any sense. It's backwards. Why would the Torah tell you it should be like Noach, who was a treifa, but anything that's not a treifa, it's I guess the kal v'chomer, something that's a treifa is going to be kosher. Doesn't make sense to exclude something that's not a treifa. Amalei rachmana kavasach ayel shlam loy ta'ayel. Doesn't make sense. So therefore, it must be Noach wasn't the treifa, and the pasuk is coming to tell you, that pasuk is coming to tell you that it says itcha, and that excludes a treifa. Now that it's telling you itcha, what do you need lahacha yezera? We had used lahacha yezera before to tell you that can't be a treifa. So what is that telling you? So if it's just like Noach, that tells you he's not a treifa. How do I know that this whole drasha that was saying what kind of animal Noach brought in, even though we proved before from the fact that he brought 7 animals, but the Gemara says maybe it just means that the Rebbe Shalom said he should not bring treifa animals on board because the Rebbe Shalom wanted to have animals. He wanted to have them to keep him company. What does Rashi say? L'tzaf sabi alma, la'amid ima yud beis chadashim b'teva. Sounds like he should have pets on the teva. But treifa, the reason for not bringing a treifa was just because it was going to die. It wouldn't provide him with his entertainment, with his zoo. I don't know why Rashi says this. I would have thought Latzaf Sabalma means that, after after the Mabel is over, he should have all the animals. Latzaf Sabalma. We want to have animals to propagate. Says Gemara, I would have thought that since it's only Latzaf Sabalma, but even if it's an old animal or an animal that is unable to procreate, that it's going to be good. Zara, it had to be lahachaye zera. It can't be a treifa, and it also can't be an animal that's going to be unable to procreate when it lands. So that's why we need both itcha and lahachaye zera. Okay, back to the original din of the Mishnah. We said shloisha. Let's see the exact lashon of the Mishnah. It says livnei idein shel oivdei kechavim shloisha yomim asa lasa siman. You 3 days before the holidays of the oivdei kechavim, for 3 days you're also to do all kinds of transactions with the guy. Zak the Gemara. Ibaylu shloisha yomim hein v'idein idom hein below idein. Does that mean the 3 days that we said you can't do transactions? Does that mean, let's say we're talking about Juneteenth? Does it mean the 3 days, meaning 2 days before June 17th, June 18th, and then June 19th is the 3rd day? Or does it mean 16th, 17th, and 18th, as well as on Juneteenth, you're not allowed to engage in transactions? So is it a total of 3 days, and the Idain is one of the 3 days, or is it 3 days before and then the day of the Yom Tov as well? Certainly on the day of the Yom Tov, if you sell something to a guy, he's immediately going to celebrate. Tashmar, Bishmol Emer, Shloish Lefneim, V'Shloish Le'achreim Aser. Bishmol argues on our Mishnah. He's going to bring him in the next Mishnah. He says it's not just 3 days before, it's also 3 days afterwards that he's worried about, that they're going to still be Misameach somehow. We'll see later on what the svar is. But in any case, he says both 3 days before and 3 days after. If you say that the 3 days includes the day of Yom Tov, doesn't make sense. He'll say 3 days before and 3 days after, but it's only, according to this, it would only be a total of 5 days. You couldn't say 3 days before and 3 days after, and he's counting twice the day of the Yom Tov itself. And they want to know that's not a problem. I need the Tana Shloisha Lefnei. He really was saying the 3 days beforehand, and that includes the day of the Yom Tov. Tananami Shloisha Lachreim. Einachanami, the 3 days afterwards is only 2 days. He just wanted to be symmetrical, since he said the 3 days before. He also said the 3 days after.
But he meant 2.
He meant the day the 2 after. Total of 5. The second one is Lav Dafka. I think I seem to remember seeing somewhere that the days after, like maybe it's Takana from the first days. The main thing is we're saying for the first 3 days. Toshma, another right. The Amr of Tachlif of Avdim Yom Shmuel. Yom Aleph, Sunday, L'divrei Rabbi Shmuel L'olam Aser. According to Rabbi Shmuel, who says that you have to aser both the days before and the days after, according to those who say every Sunday is a holiday, right? Every Sunday they go do the Avoda Zara. So there, according to Rabbi Shmuel, you're going to be aser 3 days before and 3 days after every Sunday. So it's always going to be aser to do transactions with goyim. You're never going to be able to sell or buy or lend, because according to Rabbi Shmuel, it's not just the 3 days before; it's the 3 days after. So every Sunday you're going to be aser for 3 days before, starting from when from Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, and then after it's going to be also Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You got nothing left. Now, if you'll say that when we say it's also for 3 days, it includes 2 days plus the day of the holiday, like Arba v'Chamisha. Wednesday and Thursday are not included. It's just Sunday and then Monday, Tuesday, and also Friday, Shabbos, and Sunday. But Wednesday and Thursday would not be included. The Shari, I'll leave it there Bishma. So Gemara, the Shari. So I'll leave it there Bishma like Kimi Bailey. And Gemara says, our first teretz that we said, we asked from Yishmael that we said that when it says 3 days afterwards, Lav Dafka, we're going to be chayzer from that. According to Bishmael, Einachanami, the Hain Beloy Idayan. He certainly understands it to be the holiday as well as 3 additional days before and the 3 additional days afterwards, and therefore that's why if it's Sunday, every Sunday is a holiday. By the way, I've seen that it says specifically, I think it says over there, that it's the Rishonim say very clearly this is not talking about Christians that observe Sunday. That's not who we're talking about. I think the Meiri says it, right? So according to Bishmael, certainly he holds that it's Hein Below Idayan, it's 3 days before plus.
So Thursday.
I'm sorry?
So the Bryson says that there's no day to do business with them.
Right, if you hold 3 days before plus 3 days after. Why would there be Thursday? Today is Sunday, so Thursday is 3 days
before.
It's
either 5 versus 6. It's either 7 versus.
So you say Hein Below Idayan. So it means the holiday plus the amount of days.
And 3 afterwards, that's 7 in total.
Yeah.
And the other way?
The other way, it would be just.
An overlapping day.
It would just be one day. Each one is Hein Below Idayan.
So it would be 5 days. So it would be 5 days.
It would be 5 days, right?
It's either 5 days. It's either 5 days or 7.
Right. So the whole question is in the Rabbanan who disagree that say it's only the days before. My. So what's it? Amravina Toshma. These are the different days of their Avoda Zara, Kalanda, Saturnaya, the Kartasim. Amrav Chanan Barava, Kalanda Ches Yamim, Achar Tkufa Saturnaya, Achar Tkufa. The Kalanda is the 8 days after the Tkufa, the solstice, the winter solstice, which is when the times when the what do you call it? The days reach their longest point, I think, right? The solstice is when it switches around, the days start getting longer. So the Kalanda is the 8 days after that, right? 8 days of, sounds like it's when now it probably turned into Christmas. Saturnaya, Shmini Yom Lifnei Tkufa. Those are the 8 days before. We could learn, we were just, if you want to remember this, was saying that the first one, Kalanda, is after the Tkufa, and the second one is the before, so we're reversing the chronological order, so the way to remember it is the one that we said first is the one that actually happens later. But in any case, if we're saying if we're saying it's the days as well as the days beforehand as well as the Yom Tov itself, Asara have it. It's not what's relevant to it should be 10 days. It's 8 days of the holiday plus 2 more days. If you say it's Hein Below Idayan, so saying it's 8 days and then there's 3 days before. But if you say the Yom Tov is included, it should say it's not 3 days, it's a total of 10 days. It's we're saying the Yom Tov is included together with the days beforehand. So if it's 8 days of holidays, so it's total of 10 days. So Gemara Tana Kula Kalanda Chad Yuma Hu Chashavle. So the Gemara says no. The day of the holiday, even though it's 8 days long, is all considered one day. So we say Hein Ve'idayan, it means 3 days, it means really 10 days, but the day of the Idayan is considered only one day. I don't know. Well, what's bothering me is why do we respect call their holiday that they look at it as one day? It's called one day for somehow For us, it's 8 days. Amar Ravashi, Tashma, Lifnei Yidein Shalev Tekechavim Shloisha Yamim. The days before the Eidein of Tekechavim is 3 days. We talk about the Chem Yidein, Lifnei Yidein Shalev Tekechavim Shloisha Yamim. Why does our Mishnah say it this way? Lifnei Yidein Shalev Tekechavim Shloisha Yamim. That's 3 days before the Eidein, before the holidays. If it means if Eidein is included, Lifnei Yidein Shalev Tekechavim Shloisha Yamim. The Eidein of include Eidein. Why would you say with Nei Eidein? It sounds like you're saying specifically the days before the holiday, not the holiday itself. Maybe the reason why it's said this way, is to tell you not like Rav Shimon Gamliel, who says the days afterwards are also us. So that's what we say Lifnei Eidein. In that case, listening Idam Shel Oivdei Kechavim Gimel Yamim. The Idam of Oivdei Kechavim includes 3 days. Lifneim, beforehand, and those are the days beforehand. But why do we say Lifnei Yidein Shel Oivdei Kechavim? What makes it sound like the Yideim is one thing and the days beforehand are another? Say it like this: listen, Idam Shel Oivdei Kechavim are also Gimel Yamim, and those Gimel Yamim are the days Lifneim, as opposed to Achareim. El Shema Mina Heim B'lo Yidein Shema Mina Ein Achanami. We see according to the Rabbanon that it means the 1 day plus another 3 days, which in the end we end up saying the same thing as we learned in Rabbi Yishmael. Ibayelu, mishum harvacha, idil mishum lifnei iber. That which we say that you can't do transactions of the kechavim prior to the holiday, is it because the guy is going to, let's see the Rashi, mishum harvacha, the ravach, is going to profit from the transaction. There's a specific din. It's not lifnei iver, which is going to be the second shot. It's that one is not allowed. It's a specific halacha. One is not allowed to cause a non-Jew to praise their avodah zarah. Just like you can't bring an avodah zarah into your house, not because you're being oived, but we can't be party to an oived kechavim in some way being oived as avodah zarah. Not a lifnei iver, but directly you're not allowed to. It's almost like a participation. So it can't be caused by you. So because they're going to be marviach, they're going to therefore go ahead and praise their avodah zarah. Or because the goyim are also mitzvah and not being oived avodah zarah, and by causing him to have a victory, something good before his holiday, you're going to be oived lifnei iver. You cause him to stumble and be oived avodah zarah. The ma'inafkamina. What's going to be the difference? This day. If the guy already has another animal, if it's because of havacha that he bought a second animal, the guy is going to be happy and he's going to praise his Lord. So it's that he's going to still have he's going to do that. If you say it's because you're causing him to bring a carbon, he already had a carbon. So how is this lifnei iver? You just gave him a second animal. He was going to do it anyway. Isolate the day. Is it true that lifnei iver is only when the person couldn't be yotzet? It's only when you facilitate it and make it possible. But if he already has an animal, there's no lifnei iver. Why don't we say it's lifnei iver? If he's going to use this animal, you made it. You caused him to do it with this animal. Tanya, Ram Nosson. Oh boy. How do we know you can't hand over a case of wine to a nazir or an Evim Nachai to a Bnei Nayach? If the guy is standing down the table and he says, "Pass me the wine," the nazir asks, if you don't do it, he'll just stick out his hand and get it. So that's a case where he could do it in spite of what you do, but we still stay since you participated. That's the favor, even though it would have happened either way. No, this over here we're talking about where he's on the other side of the Nar, where he's not going to be able to get this that we said here, Iver Lifnei Iver, in the case of Liyashid Adam Kaishal Yayin, is only where he's on the other side of the river. If you don't give him the wine, he's not going to be able to get it. He's going to have to go get a boat. The economics only Yoshev like Tani lo yitin. It says you shouldn't send out. Not it doesn't say lo yitin. You shouldn't give him. Shmami no. So we see that the din of the Iver is taka only when you make it possible. If without what you did, would it be possible? And therefore, Arden that we said, Mishum Havacha, we try to say Islay Lady Day, let's say day over Nichshel. We said the nafkamis who he doesn't have, it would be that's only talking about that the Lifnei Eva would be only because he doesn't have. Okay. I think we're gonna have to stop over here. Okay. It's a good thing we got an extra lot ahead.